Ferrari is still trying to steal workers from other racing teams, and this time they're looking at the big mess happening at Red Bull to grab as many famous people as possible, and whenever we talk about this, the biggest name is always going to be Adrian Newey, and with all the latest problems at Red Bull, we might see this smart British guy take his friends and move to Ferrari to start a new adventure, something that Hamilton himself said he was excited about. Will Red Bull have to pay for their own mistakes against Horner, and has this current mess already cost them too much with their own workers? It's safe to say that the Red Bull drama has been one of the hottest topics in racing, and while many people who know what's going on say that the Austrian team needs to calm down and focus on what's more important right now, the damage might have reached a point where it can't be fixed, and engineers could be leaving one after another, with Newey leading the way and going to the Ferrari team. According to the F1 insiders, Ferrari is taking advantage of the damage that has been done in Red Bull's worker groups and is focusing on three other big names besides Adrian Newey, which include Enrico Balbo, who is the boss of aerodynamics and a man that Horner hoped to give an even bigger job in the coming time, David Morgan, who is the trackside performance team leader and has worked with Red Bull since leaving Williams, and Ben Waterhouse, who is the boss of performance engineering at Red Bull. To add to that, Ferrari seems to be focusing on hiring Alessandro Germani, who is an expert in CFD or computer fluid math, which is definitely an area Ferrari would need a huge improvement in if they want to beat Red Bull. But while these names are all very famous and do seem like huge improvements for Ferrari, which is not something we should look far away to admit, considering how much knowledge that Dan Fallows brought to Aston Martin, as he was the former head of aerodynamics at Red Bull, and instantly made Aston Martin a top 5 team, they do not compare with the genius mind of Adrian Newey. As of now, reports say that the Ferrari team is ready to offer the British genius a blank check, which means that he would be the one making his own salary and his own working conditions, and one thing is for sure, he'd be taking the drawing board with him too. Ferrari as well. These moves are connected to the chairman of Ferrari, John Elkann, who has constantly said his wish to bring Ferrari back to its golden days from 2000 to 2004, as well as the close competitive years they had in 2007 and 2010 to 2012. So with that in mind, you could be making a strong argument that Ferrari does not plan to play games when it comes to hiring strong and powerful workers and making the car a championship winning one. If you're wondering how Ferrari is able to make these moves, with the budget cap being one of the biggest obstacles in the sport, we need to remind you of one very important thing here. The top 3 employees in the team are not counted in the budget cap. Therefore, Ferrari would be smart to make Newey one of those 3 employees, and while all of this information comes from the Italian media, which is very close to Ferrari and can sometimes favor their home team, it does give you a lot to think about when it comes to hiring such an experienced group from Red Bull, a team that has struggled a lot to keep things stable ever since the death of Dietrich Mateschitz. On top of that, Auto, Motor and Sport reported that Adrian Newey's happiness with Red Bull has slowly but surely started to go down, and even though he said his plans to stay with the team no matter how the entire Horner drama would end, there's one very important thing we need to say here. It's Horner who decides the jobs of these experienced engineers. Recently, Horner said multiple times that Newey's influence in how the Red Bull cars look in the past couple of years is a very small one, and now Auto, Motor and Sport believes that the 50-year-old British guy wants to push his older teammates out of the big picture and make him fully focus on the Red Bull's RB17 supercar project only for budget cap reasons. The reaction of the media is already loud and clear. Even though Newey enjoys building supercars, that has been one of the long-loved projects as an engineer, if he's moved down to this job and totally removed from the influence of Red Bull's F1 cars, then you can bet on the fact that he would be moving to Ferrari and start his revenge story in taking down Red Bull, which, by the way, can definitely be done considering how much knowledge he has in his area and skills. This is very interesting because it comes at a time when Lewis Hamilton joined Ferrari, and although many have connected this move by Ferrari with the ongoing crisis at Red Bull, it's safe to assume that they might have tried to hire some of these engineers with their current driver lineup, therefore, you can raise an argument as to whether or not Ferrari is trying to build around Hamilton as their next champion, considering how much work they're doing to hire all of these engineers and make a total rebuilding of the team. They didn't do the same for Leclerc, who, while he will also benefit a lot from these signings, if they happen in the near future, needed Hamilton to sign a contract with Ferrari in order to see his team chasing these high-profile engineers. However, the question for Ferrari fans remains, is all of this one massive rumor, and are they hooked to the hope machine for God knows what time now? According to the facts, it seems like Ferrari is making some strong moves, and there are certain situations that won't end well for Red Bull, such as the internal drama between the Verstappen-Marko group and Christian Horner as Joe's. Verstappen firmly said as long as Horner is leading the team, the environment in which his son has to drive is not a good one, and there have been proper reports that Red Bull plans on changing the pair of drivers they have right now if Verstappen is to leave them for Mercedes. But the damage that the three-time world champion is about to do to the Austrian team, according to Horner, is not important. They can hire whoever they want and win races consistently, maybe not within the margin Verstappen does, but the job would still be done nonetheless, so you could easily say that there's a fight between two giants at Red Bull, and it cannot end well for one of the two sides. Now engineers like Adrian Newey might not want to deal with all of the aftermath here, because they haven't been hired to deal with the internal politics. His job and the job of his co-workers is to design cars, and if they find themselves in a toxic environment in which their creative abilities will be limited, then it's safe to say they would be looking for another team to work for. Judging by all the moves that Ferrari has been making, the market does seem quite attractive for these Red Bull engineers, and with Newey saying that one of his biggest regrets is not working with a team like Ferrari, as well as Hamilton's shocking move, you can never say never to another shocking earthquake starting from Red Bull and being moved to the Ferrari factory. All the credit is going to Frederick Vasseur, one of the most doubted team bosses on the grid, once he replaced Mattia Binotto and finished third in his first year with the team. But after the massive signings he made with Loic Serra and Lewis Hamilton, as well as Dan Bazio, who was the motorsport boss at Mercedes and is now going to take a senior job at Ferrari, you can definitely bet that the Ferrari team is not going to settle for anything less than a championship. And with the power pair of drivers they'll have, it's not going to be that unrealistic of a scenario. Either now, Christian Horner might be doing exactly what he stated he doesn't want to do in his own team, have individuals that feel like they are above the team, which was the direct threat he sent to Verstappen when the Dutch driver threatened to leave. If Marko wasn't there with him from this point of view, we could understand a bit as to why Joe's is very loud when it comes to replacing Horner, because this is the man who has been in the team from day one, and if there's certain situations that are not going his way, then the last thing he would want to do is bow down before the new generation and give in to the new culture. On the contrary, after being found innocent of the claims, Horner might want to push his knee even further and bring more authority to the team. All of this could definitely turn into more drama for Red Bull, because they are the team that is under a huge threat of falling apart, and considering the fact that their rivals are in a much-needed situation of stealing unhappy workers from their group, it's not something that the Austrian team should approach in such an unserious way. With this in mind, do you think that Adrian Newey could be joining Ferrari anytime soon? And more importantly, do you think that there's an opportunity for Red Bull to recover if the British guy leaves the team in the hands of whoever would be left behind him, given the fact that Ferrari is looking at a whole bunch of engineers from Red Bull? Let us know in the comments below.